Good afternoon on what is a bright and chilly day. It is Sunday the 21st of November. I am back in the reading nook with a cat who is not ours. And of course a nice hot cup of tea, which I do need. And I'm also here with my duck. Because I only have one parcel to unbox today, which is this. I know what's in it, and I definitely need my duck for this. His name is Truman. You may recognise him from a certain comic book series, but he definitely needs to be out here. So, got the knife. I've got a cat, so I'm going to be a bit careful because he doesn't want to be scored when I open this box. So let me just get to it. It's a nice big box, and he is extremely interested in what I'm doing. There we go, almost there. So the box is done, and we open up, and what I've got in the box is that. Probably need a bit more unpacking, and here it is. This is the thing that I know a lot of people have been waiting for and have already received, but and I'm just trying to here we go. It's the RuneQuest Roleplaying and Glorantha Starter Set. Newly released from Chaosium. So pulling that out, what have we got? Here we go. Box down for convenience. So, essentially, RuneQuest Roleplaying and Glorantha Starter Set. Everything you need for adventure in a mythic world by Greg Stafford, Jeff Richard, and Jason Durrell. Basically, you have basically a scene on the front, really nicely painted scene, and it's from one of the scenarios because I have played all of the scenarios in this starter set, although I've not seen the starter set until now. And then on the back, you can see essentially what's in the box. You get an awful lot. So what does it say on the back? We also got an illustration, which I probably presume is essentially a scene from perhaps Johnstown, which is where much of this box set takes place. So, a world of fantastic myth and heroic adventure in a box. RuneQuest is a fantasy role-playing game set in the world of Glorantha, played by 2 or more players and a single game master. Players in RuneQuest are adventurers, heroes who must face the challenges laid before them by the game master, who describes the world and its incredible inhabitants. Adventurers are defined by their skills, passions, equipment, and magical abilities, such as spells and mastery of the powerful runes. They improve by successfully using the skills and abilities they attempt in play. Combat is dangerous and unpredictable. Even the mightiest can fall in battle, victim to a well-aimed blow, just as the most inexperienced peasant might bring down a giant or even a dragon, if they are lucky enough. Such is life in the world of Glorantha. Beset by war, the heroes of Glorantha ready themselves for the greatest challenge, the looming threat of the hero wars. An apocalyptic battle that will shape the fate of the world for all of time. To show themselves worthy, heroes adventure and strive against chaos and their former enemies, the Lunar Empire. The RuneQuest Starter Set allows players to easily immerse themselves into Glorantha and its system, with ready-to-use characters and ready-to-play adventurers, allowing for many hours of play. There is no better way to learn about the game than this starter set. And you've got a list of the books and content in there, which I'll just show you there, but I'm going to open the box and actually show you. As you can see, it's all laid out there. There's a lot now, and this actually is quite weighty. I would say it's not as weighty perhaps as the core rulebook, but it's not far off, and it's also almost of an equal thickness. But don't let that put you off, because essentially everything in here is broken down into constituent parts for easy access. So, taking up the knife again, basically under the governance of good old Truman here, I will slice open the plastic. There we go. Just get the try and break it and get the knife under there. It. Just here we go. Now, if you've seen the contents of the Cthulhu Starter Set, you'll know in general just how good that was. I suspect this is in the same league, but we open up. So basically, nicely slides off easily, and what we've got straight off is what's in this box. And what's in this box? I've already dropped something. But that's fine, I can easily reach down and get that, because what I've dropped is a full set of dice you need to play. Now these are not as nice as the official RuneQuest dice that you can get, which come in green and bone and also lunar red. I've got all sets, all three sets, but these do come in a nice, basically in a bronze colour, which is, because RuneQuest is a Bronze Age setting, is thematically perfect. Anyway, so apart from dropping those, let's see what we've got. We have a guide to what's in this box, nice and clear and simple. You know, it doesn't ambush the purchaser with you know, okay, they're not going in here unaware, okay, but against it goes through what's here, and it does tell you at the bottom what's not in the box. Okay, that's also a good inclusion as well. Very useful. Because obviously some people are going to go, oh, what's in the box? The starter set. Do you get character generation? Well, of course not. It's a starter set. You don't need character generation. You basically, the starter set is there to give you a taster of what the game world and game setting is like. And then on the back we have where do you need to go next? Also useful. So of those, I mean, they're all good. Obviously, the next thing you would buy is listed here is RuneQuest Roleplaying and Glorantha, the core rule book. The bestiary is also very useful, of course, because it's got all the foes and enemies and so on, and basically all the details of the other races. Not the details, but essentially basic information on the other races to create those as NPCs. And lastly, the Geo Games Master Pack, and I would thoroughly recommend that because it's got good adventures, good background material, excellent screen, a lot of gameable material. So what's next underneath here? We have Book 1 Rules. Now, I mean, RuneQuest itself is fairly simple in terms of its core mechanic: roll percentiles, roll under. That's it. It gets a bit complex when you're dealing with a lot of things like combat and magic and so on. Not necessarily overly complex, but there's a bit to learn there. So the first book is rules, and we've got essentially what we've got on here is, I think, that uses essentially are the core characters that they use throughout, sort of like the branding of the RuneQuest. You'll see these characters again and again, and if you go into the rule book, you will see them used as NPC, it's example player characters, and examples of a play and the rules. So there's sort of consistency there. And the other thing you will see is if you do this, if you take the books out, which is really clever, which is really nice use of space, is you've got maps on the back, but the maps slot together like that. And there's 4 books, so you've got like a 4x4 map, which I can't show you because I don't have 4 arms. Anybody requesting that may be in for a long wait. So book 1, content rules. We get into, all right, we've got a basic explanation of what RuneQuest and Glorantha, how it's played, and of course this will be obviously familiar to many people, but at the same time, you know, there are others it won't be. So it's, you know, if you've been playing RuneQuest for a while, or you're coming to this setting, and you've not played the new setting, perfect introduction, or the new rules, I mean, or you've never played in Glorantha, here's the starting point, and we have an explanation of the statistics, the stats, and the abilities, and so on. And what it includes here is sort of like, okay, well, here's what they are. Here's what they are on the character sheet that comes with each with the game. So you've got an explanation of the characteristics, reputation, abilities, characteristic roles, and so on. And then we have an example of play. I mean, really quite close up front where you need it. And you go, okay, what's this? How does this game play like? Well, we'll show you, and that's a nice touch. I mean, and then going through into gameplay. This simple table. How do the rules? How you roll the dice, and what are the results? Yeah. So just a lot of it be familiar. Also, how the resistance table works. Again, useful tool to have there because you're constantly using that. It's one of the few basic roleplay systems which still does that. So a list of all the skills, experience. Then we go on to passions and how they work, and then runes. And I think if you already play RuneQuest, you're going to buy this anyway. This may well be worth reading. You may not want to read this because I know the rules, but read through it anyway. Basically, just get a gist of how how the game is being written and aimed, not necessarily at you, but somebody new to it. And basically gives you a chance to sort of like refresh how the game rules, just to remind yourself of anything you might miss, because it does happen. So yeah, I mean, basically the rules are sort of written for a slightly new, different perspective than you might necessarily be used to. Nice piece of artwork, again, a piece of combat between, I presume, what looks to be, I would suggest, a Glorantha warrior, perhaps a lunar one, since she is wearing red. But you can see how, basically how it's supposed to be fairly brutal in its nature, and RuneQuest combat can be like that. Not for nothing is there a joke about, oh my god, I've had my left leg chopped off again. It happens. So the other thing about RuneQuest essentially is that it is, I'm going to say basically mechanically crunchy, in the sense that, okay, when you attack, you have a chance to parry, and there's a chance that you can you'll damage your opponent's weapons when you, when you attack and they parry, and so on. And that's covered essentially by a table where you basically quickly check the results. Now, all of this is these tables are presented on the screen that comes with the GM's pack, and I'd say it's worth getting. But, constantly referring to it in play, and then we get to things like, okay, here's an explanation of armor, and a box that said, I need healing, and there's how to get healing fast. That's really useful. I mean, you almost know, that's a great thing for the players. And, give idea, okay, because essentially they get rushed into combat, they exchange you for blows, they get hurt and they're down, or they're going, what do I do now? Well, here there's that nice little box set which just gives you the guide, and then we go on to healing and death, and then, having explained all the rules, we have an adventure sheet overview, breaking it down section by section, telling you where everything is. And after all of that, we've done an example of play. Here's an example of combat. That gets, again, another useful thing. Basically, you get an example of combat that shows you how the game is, is run and how it feels in play. And just the same for magic. We've got a list of rune spells. Essentially following the format that we saw previously in Red Book of Magic. So you've got essentially the associated runes at the top and the cost and so on, and the effects below. And then it's going to do, I presume, I want to get to the point where are we? Okay, Divine Intervention, of course, the Spirit World, dealing with that's going to be useful for the basics of a couple of characters like the Shaman, and then of course Sorcery for the Lankormai. And then essentially we have quick section on between adventurers, because there's a lot that characters can do when they're not adventuring. They can train, they may have responsibilities and so on, and the like. So yeah, that's the rules. I mean, that runs to 60 pages. So fairly lengthy. It won't take actually that long to read through, especially if you're familiar. But I think it's going to be fairly easy to learn and understand, and and basically would serve as a good primer before you switch over to the main rules. So, having sort of done a little introduction to Glorantha, we have Book 2, The World of Glorantha. Okay, the map on the back, and here what we have here is the signature point, basically the starting point for the whole of RuneQuest role-playing Glorantha. That's the Dragon Rise. The default starting period is the year 1625 for RuneQuest role-playing Glorantha, and as any of the campaigns typically start as at the default. So whether that's playing the Broken Tower or playing through the adventures in this box set, in this box set, okay, is that the Dragon Rise has just happened in the past few weeks and has wrought great destruction upon the presence of the Lunars in Sartar, driven many people mad, forced the Lunars to flee. This is what it looks like. So if you can imagine, here's a depiction of it. We show that to the players and you go, okay, I get why that's kind of scary. So this this explains we have an Age of Bronze, really fantastic illustration of the city there, nicely done, busy, lots of colourful, and gets across the field. And then we talks about the runes. Now talk a bit about the runes in the rule book. This expands on it a bit. And we go on to gods and cults and talks about the most important ones and lists them there. And these are not all of the gods. There's going to be a complete gods and cults book coming out very soon. But this really talks about the ones that are going to figure in the starter set and the ones that are probably are most common in Sartar. We have a discussion of what the elder races alongside, basically a quick paragraph to each of the major gods of the region, so on, and then we deal with unique aspects of Glorantha, and basically that's heroes and hero costing, kinship and community, all important, and so on. Before we go on to the world, on the also the fact, basically deadly combat. Can't stress that enough. And then the world, so we have depiction of the world. There we go. That's been seen again and again across various different supplements. And then this absolutely fantastic map of Northern Sartar. I mean, there have been a couple of classic maps of Dragon Pass, and it's in its different regions, going all the way back to sort of like RuneQuest 2, classic RuneQuest, back in the late 70s, early 80s. But these updates of these maps are really, really fantastic. They really sort of like bring the setting alive. They're really easy to read, and I've used them in my own game to show my players, and they've gone, yeah, basically what's this, what's that, looking at the map, and get some idea where everything is, and to realise essentially that actually the space which you're playing in of Sartar, and then and then Tarsh and Lunar Empire to the north, are sort of like, it's actually not very far. It's only a few hundred miles. Then we get on to the myth and history. So here we begin to go into sort of like a deeper dive into the background of Glorantha. Basically only a page or two, and it very quickly comes up essentially the invasion of the Empire of the Red Moon, the Lunar Empire, and its invasion of Sartar, and we get on to the liberation of Sartar following the Dragon Rise. Go, and then we get on to Johnstown, the city of Johnstown, describing where it is, the local tribes, and this basically moves it away, moves sort of like the focus of RuneQuest away a bit from essentially Apple Lane and the city of Kolimar, with the GMs, with the GMs pack, and also things like Smoking Ruin, and Pegasus Plateau, or where there is a sort of general focus sort of like down in that area. This moves it slightly north, and they're not necessarily that far away. So we've got a complete history of Johnstown here, timeline, place in northern Sartor and the local regions, and a great description of where the different the various clans and tribes are of the region, because they're all vital in the local politics. And we've got a description of Johnstown and a really fantastic map which we have used in play when we've been playing the scenarios for the starter set, and these have been a lot of fun to play. And then we get on to the power people in the city government. So Onagarin Holdfast, as far as I'm aware, he's a nice guy. My character's sort of like, I've had dinner with him a few times, drinks with him, that sort of thing. And we have the various temple groups, like the Chandler Roy temple group, and we didn't get much interaction with those, but essentially they're there for you as the GM to bring them into play. And the Osiris temple group, again, slightly different illustration style here than we've been seen in previous RuneQuest supplements, but that's fine. Then we go on to the Lankomai temple group, known as the Greybeards, even down to the non-male Lankomai scribes and scholars wearing greybeards, but that's fine. And so on. Other various people of note and so on are listed. And then we description of the city quarters. So, for example, and this is accompanied by a nice map. So, I've got descriptions, decent map, quite close in, which shows you just how good the map is. You know, it's actually that detailed. You know, that you can focus in and really look at the individual buildings and mark them up. And many of these will actually come to play. And I think the other thing that I think is there's a box here going shopping. What you can buy in Johnstown. So from cloak to labour unskilled to lamp, because there are times when players do really like going shopping. They've got some money, they want to spend it. And then we have the amazing invention, Starin's catalogue wheel. Oh, how I could do one of these at times when I'm reading. But I don't have the space because I've got too many books. So yeah, this is basically all the background information you're going to need. Merchant's Quarter, Crafter's Quarter, focus on particular parts of Johnstown, give you a complete background. And the other thing is essentially this is moving the setting on from sort of like a rural setting, Apple Lane, which is essentially a small sort of hamlet or village even, to an actual settlement, to a proper town or city. Famed of course for its Lankomai scribes and its library, where it has of course a famed gaming section called the Johnstown Compendium. You should check it out when you visit. So that's book 2. Book 3, Solo Quest. Now, if you remember in the Call of Cthulhu scenario, Call of Cthulhu box set, you had the scenario Alone Against the Flames, okay, which showed you how to play RuneQuest how to play Call of Cthulhu, and also helped you make decisions about your character as you went along. This essentially does this. This presents. Let's have a look. A solo quest adventure. 200 entries, 60 pages long again, and you're playing Fasana, Daughter of Fanon, who you may recognise from the core rulebook as the example of character generation, and also from the Broken Tower. She's one of the recurring characters, and this deals with the Battle of Dangerford, where having been driven or forced out of or forced to flee Sartar, the lunar forces regroup and attempt to reinvade again, and the leading rebel against the Lunars throughout their occupation, Kalia Starbrow, leads the defence at the village of and ford of Dangerford. So here we go. There's an illustration that So yeah, essentially the Lunars are going to come down straight down the road from Lunar Tarsh, and the defenders are going to basically try and drive them off. And it's a fantastic adventure. I've not played it solo, so I'm looking forward to doing that again. When I played it, we did it as a group, so you know, there was a lot going on, and the referee had to really sort of basically keep sort of like quite a tight, not a tight rein, or basically be really aware of where things were, perhaps in the scenario itself, because being a solo scenario, all the constituent parts, essentially the connecting bits, are all over the place. Amongst the 200 entries, they're not linear for obvious reasons. So it allows you to get involved in Kalia Star meeting, council meeting, Kalia Star's council meeting, and help decide where you'll be and what you'll do. And then you have Vasana readying her war bison for battle. I have a player who will be intensely jealous of having of that, because his Lanko, my character, has a bison that she can't ride, and it's very funny. And then the other thing that's kind of interesting about Dangerford is it's a noted point of there's a Humact, altar devoted to Humact there, and that's important. So if you're playing a Humacti character and you participate in this battle, you'd want to go and basically worship there, as or alternatively worship the ancestors. And then we have a Kalia's war tent, basically showing the guards outside, and the movement of the forces, the lunar forces, and or the Sartar forces. Then we're on to the battle, and you just see how frenetic it is. And this is before you even get involved with the use of magic. And the Sartarite army charges. I mean, just that's you sat there, you know, back here on your bison, charging the phalanx of the Lunar Empire. You know, to their pikes ready to spear you. And then you face Vostor, son of Pajim. Now, you may well this is interesting, because you may well remember him from the sample player characters in the core rulebook, and also the Broken Tower as a playable character. So I presume you might encounter him, battle him, and get him to join your side. That would be interesting. And then basically we've got the later section of Battle of Dangerford, all the way down to entry 200, and the last kind of scenes with the Judge of the Dead, and so on. So yeah, there's a lot to dig into in there. That will keep you. I reckon that will really keep you busy for a good session, playing through that. And you may not even get through that in one session. You know, you will die, you're going to start again. And even if you do, I mean, it'd be interesting to play it with different characters if you've got the core book. So, okay. Then, book 4, Adventures. And this is, let's have a look. This is the thickest book it's 81 pages. It's the thickest book in the section, in the box. And what we have in here, so you've got a guide to adventuring in Glorantha, and it tells you it's only for Game Masters only. But I know I can look at this because I'm going to run some of these adventures, and B, I've played them. So we have essentially Rough Landing, essentially the first scenario, first time here. First time there, starting there, basic introduction, and the scenario Rough Landing, and this one takes you from essentially the battlefield at Dangerford across to the town of Johnstown, where you basically encounter some difficulties, including a bunch of essentially not quite marauding, but definitely partying trolls, and perhaps have to deal with them, go up against them in a fight, but, and you know, basically once you that gets you noticed, and it says, you know, meeting with the law, and that begins your relationship with the Johnstown community, and gets you beginning to involved with the scenario. The first one, where you have to go and investigate a village where something strange has happened, and that's primarily a mixture of investigation and primarily it's like a physical action scenario. Whereas the second one, of Fire in Darkness, brings you back to Johnstown, where a series of mysterious fires plague Johnstown, and the players have to examine, find out what's going on. And there's a nice section in here. You've got RuneQuest veterans, basically, you know, here's what's going on for their benefit. And it's because essentially one of the things about this is that if you've played RuneQuest and you've played a lot of games like Glorantha, you may have some idea of what's going on because you'll be aware of the lore, whereas someone else who is completely new to this may not. So on. So there's a bit of guidance sort of handling both, yeah, you know, basically you are dealing with multiple problems in here and helping to save save Johnstown from further fires. And it's much, I mean, and all of it is tied into recent events, because essentially one of the things that has happened is that the Dragon Rise has upset the balance of or the state of affairs in the region, driving the Lunar Empire out, leaving a power vacuum, and the Sartorites basically have been under the lunar thumb for best part of a decade, and they're not quite ready to basically, you know, be in control again. So somebody's got to fill the vacuum, and this is kind of exploring the consequences of those actions. So then we get into scenario 3. There are 3. Let's just see how many scenarios there are. I think there's 3. Yeah, it's 3, and it's Rainbow Mounds. Now, this is an interesting scenario because it's a sequel to a scenario also called Rainbow Mounds, which appeared in the supplement Apple Lane back in 1978-79. So that also came with a scenario called Gringle's Pawn Shop, and together that supplement really served as the equivalent of B2 Keep on the Borderlands or B1 In Search of the Unknown, 2 basic Dungeons and Dragons scenarios. Essentially would serve as the equivalent of almost every RuneQuest player's first introduction to Glorantha, playing through Gringle's Pawn Shop, defending that overnight against an attack by baboons, and then investigating the Rainbow Mounds, which is a cave system, and is really sort of like you know, it's like a dungeon done RuneQuest style. So there's a lot more to it than that sounds. When I say dungeon, I don't want to just throw away. There's a lot of flavour and detail, and a lot of things for the player characters to explore and discover. And what's really interesting, what's great about Rainbow Mounds, if you come back to it, especially if you come back to it as a veteran, you're exploring territory you explored, you know, anywhere up to sort of like 20, 30 years ago as a player. And it leads to one possibility, essentially, where, which is, for example, is what I'm going to do, and what I've already done with Gringle's Pawn Shop, is essentially the events of Apple Lane, i.e. Gringle's Pawn Shop, and then Rainbow Mounds take place back when player characters are recent initiates. Essentially, they are 16 and 17. Okay. RuneQuest Roleplaying in Glorantha, when they come to, when you start out, characters are 21 years of age. They've had 5 years experience adventuring and exploring and presumably dealing with another different attacks upon Dragon Pass, and so often fighting against the Lunar Empire. Well, I'm running Gringle's Pawn Shop essentially as a flashback to when they were initiates, and I'm going to do this exactly the same when it comes to Rainbow Mounds. So essentially that means I've got players on my table who are veterans and some are new, and they've never played either of them. So yeah, Rainbow Mounds. I shall be running it twice because I shall be running this version of the scenario in their current timeline as a sequel. But there's that possibility, you know. And again, so we've got a nice scene from inside the tunnel. So there's still we've got Trollkin in there. There are still bit of a spoiler. There are still trolls in there, but there's much more going on in there than just that. Having played our way through it, and then we finally get down to the last section. We've got a section of further adventures. I mean, just like the GM's pack, we have. Table of further rumours, further adventures, which the game master can develop beyond here, especially if she goes away and gets a copy of the core rules. And we've got Johnstown encounters as well there to bring that alive. So there's a huge amount of gaming content in here. Also in here we've got a calendar, which can be quite important if you're going to keep track of the player characters' rune points, because they need to go and pray and there's certain times they play. So because that's the 4 books in here. Okay, so what else have we got in here? There's quite a lot. There is quite a lot. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I'm just going to show you one. But okay, so the next thing here we have is this, and they're not going to fall out. And we've got an image of Fasana and Molon, Fasana's bison, whom you will ride into battle in the solo scenario. Now that's on the front. Okay, on the back we have breakdown of Fasana's runes. Okay, so we've got the elemental affinities there at the top, and then the power affinities down below, because they constantly figure throughout the play. And then we have her background, and then how to play her. So if you come to this game completely new, and you're going, okay, you're handed a character out, going, well, how do I play this? I've got this background, but I don't know how to play it. But there's just a little bit at the bottom here giving you advice. Useful, but further, okay, that's not just it, because ta-da! So we have essentially we've done it as a pamphlet. So we have the character statistics in here on the left hand side, all the skills in the middle where they're easy to see, including stats for Molon, starting abilities in the middle there, and treasures, and let's have a look. Anything else we're going to see? It must be see somewhere. At her magic as well, and oh yeah, basically you've got the statistics there and the weapons stats there. I was looking for those. So it does those for all of the characters. So we look through a bit further. This is Yanioth, who is an apprentice priestess of Enelda. In the town, basically she's wearing green, got an earth elemental with her, next is that's Halmast, Branthos' son, who is on an Isari's merchant. He's been able to get on his travels. He's been able to get a zebra from Prax. Vishidan is a shaman, and he's accompanied by his assistant cousin Monkey. We have extra more characters in this because there are a lot more characters in here than there are given in the Broken Tower. There's only like 6 or 7. Vostor, son of Pajim, whom you'll recognise from where I showed you the picture in the solo adventure, and he is he's a lunar Tarshite who has basically defected from the Lunar Empire. Next we've got below Sorala, daughter of Toria, who is a scribe from Notchet, and as you can see, she's a greybeard, but she has a very pretty beard, bejewelled beard. And then Natham, who is a hunter, worshipper of presumably Odalia, the bear god. Just trying to check, see what magic he's got. Yes. Okay, so he's a hunter. He's got shadow cat, because there are dogs in Glorantha, but they're not as favoured as by Sartites. They prefer cats or annexes. Then we have an axe maiden who worships Babista Gore, wielding a great axe. so many of these. I mean, just yeah. I think there's something like 14 of here. A bandit from the Sable Rider tribe in Prax. So next we have Priestess of the Pure Horse People, and she worships. So look, Marangor. So yeah, I keep going. There's so much in here. Mercenary soldier from Wilmot in Sartar, and he worships. He's a Stormball who hates chaos, of course. And then we have another worshipper of. We have a worshipper of Ermel. Basically the trickster god, Nari's rune painter, who is a tattoo artist. Below that, keep going. So many of these. A healer from Clearwine, so worshipper of Charnala Roy. So lots of, I mean, it's essentially rather than just 6 different characters, you've got a lot of different characters, and we have a worshipper of Humact, and that is Varicos Wolfkiller. And basically, that's basically the wolf killer thing. Indicates essentially he probably hates Telmori, who are the equivalent, the nearest thing. The setting sort of has to lycanthropes, but they're not really. And then we've got blank characters, portraits as well, pamphlets as well. So there's a couple of those, and then we get to the maps. So we have a map of Northern Sartar. They're done heavy stock paper, and then on the reverse there is a map of Johnstown, which people can refer to. There's a lot there, and then below that another map. So we've got essentially, we've got a map for Rainbow Mounts and another map, a blank one, essentially one for players, one for the referee, the GM. RuneQuest Starter references. These are all the same. So you've got 2 of these, and that's a really nice idea. 2 of them, so you can have 2 on the table. One for the GM, easy reference. One for the players if necessary. Okay, almost there. We're almost there. We are almost there. And then Guide to Glorantha and Runes. And then useful aid to have on the table is a strike rank table to track it, because essentially when you're in play, combat takes place over like 12-second rounds, and you can act in. And when you can act depends upon how fast you are, how big you are, and what's the speed of the weapon you're wielding, and what you're doing, whether you're casting magic, attacking, or running away, and so on, or getting up even. So we have basically a list of actions and their strike rank penalties, and you basically just take the characters and you just basically say, oh, I'm going to attack. I attack on if they're lucky, I attack strike rank 4, but more likely 5 or 6, and you just move round again and again, just to sort of basically track everyone's movement and actions over the course of a round. So that's really useful. So and that's everything in the box. It's all empty. Unpacking that lot has taken me the good part of 45 minutes. So this is an incredibly lengthy unboxing, but it's been worth it, because I've been really looking forward to seeing this, because I have enjoyed playing the scenarios, and I really enjoy playing and running RuneQuest, and I absolutely adore starter sets. I love writing about them. I love playing them. And a really good starter set should introduce the mechanics and play, and give plenty of play. for a playing group, it should come to the table, get everything out, go, wow, what have I got here? What am I playing? When can I start? Let's get going. And you kind of go, just the one scenario. Is that it? What have I got to go and get next? In this, you've got more. You've got, you've got all the rules you need to play. You've got guide to the background, both in terms of the general, broad background, then a particular location in Johnstown itself. And then, essentially, because you've purchased this, you've got this as the referee. You're going to play it. You're going to run it. Okay. Well, okay. You've got scenarios you're going to run for the you're going to run for your players, but you've got a solo scenario in there which you can play and enjoy on your own, basically on your own. But to get some idea of how the game is played and how you play it, get a feel for it, and that's in addition to the two examples of the example of play and the example of combat in there, and that's a really great touch because, as the referee, you need to know what it's like, what it feels like to roll the dice and go out and cast magic and essentially face a lunar, a lunar swordsman and block his attack with your shield and strike back with your axe and so on. And I think you'll have all of those options to do in playing through the solo adventure, the defense of Dangerford, and then you'll have some idea of what it's like when you come to playing it or running it for your larger group. And I think also the other thing to look at this, if you're a veteran player of RuneQuest, you're going to want this anyway. But the other thing that this does, essentially, it gives you a foundation for the new players as well, for the region immediately around it. Okay, when you've got the base of Johnstown, you've got that's a base of operations for the player characters to go out and explore and do missions for the town circle, and come back, make the names for themselves, and so on. And I think the other thing about that is that that scope for you to create your own content as well around that, and maybe even put it up on the Johnstown Compendium on Drive-Thru RPG, okay, to further support the box set. I think that's a great opportunity. And of course, if it's really good and it goes up, and basically, essentially, the Johnstown Compendium, the Library of Johnstown, is already in the box set. So that's the RuneQuest Starter Set. I think this is going to be really popular. It's really worth getting if you're into RuneQuest. It's a really great entry point for the game. If you're just looking for a one shot, go try go and try the Broken Tower, the quick start. It's playable and it's enjoyable. You get a good couple of sessions out of that. I've run it 2 or 3 times. I've played it once myself. But this expands upon the world, gives you a lot more to do. And it gives you 3 different types of adventure, because you've got one which is basically attacking the defense of a village. Then you've got a bit of an investigation and deal with a problem in a village or location under attack. That's almost a classic adventure. And then you come back and you've got a mystery to solve in the second adventure. And in the third adventure, Rainbow Mountains, you've got to go and do, well, the nearest equivalent you'll get to doing a dungeon. To go and investigate a cave system and find out what's going on in there. So plenty of adventure, lots of ideas beyond that as well. But as a starting point, you're getting a really, really well put together, really well designed product. The phrase, I think basically, I think Chaosium have made a critical role with it, a critical hit with this box set, and I know my duck agrees. Truman's well impressed. Pick up a copy of this. It's going to be out in general release fairly soon. You can get it direct from Chaosium at the moment, but it will be out in general release. And of course, if you're Dragon Meat, I'm sure that they will have copies on sale there, worth picking up. Right. Thank you very much for watching what is my longest video to date. If you've enjoyed this, please click the like button down below. Okay. If you've got any comments or feedback, appreciate you posting those. I do take the time to read them. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings in the Nook, where you will see me out here with a box and a game, basically, which I will talk about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, or in this case 50 minutes, all accompanied occasionally by, well, the cat's not here, in very rare instances, Shroom and the Duck, and a nice hot cup of tea. Unfortunately not so hot because I've been talking for 50 minutes, but still. Please do hit that subscribe button down below. Thanks again for watching. I'll be back again soon with another unboxing in the Nook. Bye for now.